I get asked all the time, Steve, what is the best way to rebuild a team on a budget? So today I have put together my 5 best tips that I can give to you for putting together the best team possible on the smallest budget possible. So let's dive in first and foremost and take a look at an example of a rebuild that I have recently done. This is the 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 Athletic rebuild that you can find on my channel. I made a note to make a save, a point of the save after the first season so that I could kind of show you guys what we do on a budget in these rebuilds. So just to give you a little bit of context, 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 was the team that we were managing. They were top of the National League. We got promoted in that first season, so we will be playing Sky Bet League 2 football next year. If we go into our finances section, you can see I have a transfer budget of nothing, and I have an increase in my wage budget. It will be going up to £33,973, which isn't overly bad, but it's not going to be great in terms of the rest of League 2, of course, coupled with the 0 transfer budget. So how do I go about rebuilding teams of this nature on a budget? Well, first and foremost, you need to see how good your team is, and the best way to do that is by going into the tactics and finding the holes within your own team. So the first thing I would do in this instance is I would go in at the end of the season, I would quick pick without restriction my best 11 and initially take a look at the star ratings. Now the star ratings are very relative compared to your own team, so you can see Norman in goal for me, he's a good rating compared to the rest of the players in here. If I were to chuck 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 𝙤𝙗 in here for instance, everyone else's star rating would plummet because 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙤 𝙤𝙗 is so good. So whilst I do take the star ratings with a little bit of a pinch of salt, I can easily see here we're kind of lacking a little bit up top. My striker is only a 2.5 star player. He only scored 8 goals this season. It's not great. We've got this other guy here, Mike Fondup. He scored 32, so he's probably going to fit in there, but they're basically as good as each other. So I can initially see already that that is an area of the pitch that I'm going to need to strengthen. You can also take a look at things in terms of the league table. This is very indicative of how you've been getting on. We've conceded 55 goals as well, so this would point to the fact that if we go on goals against and we filter, you can see we're in the top half, but we're nowhere near the top. Notts County doing a much better job defensively than we were, as were 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 Town. In terms of scoring goals, we're fine at scoring goals. So that is a little bit of contrasting information there, but maybe just maybe FM23 is very difficult to keep clean sheets. Or at least that's what I've been finding. So that would be my first port of call, checking how good your team is against the star ratings and spotting those weaknesses within your own team. So guys, before we get into the rest of the tips, if you are enjoying this video and you are already finding it useful, please do consider hitting that like button down below and consider hitting that subscribe button so that you do not miss any of the content that we have upcoming over the next few weeks. And also you can kind of see how these rebuilds are used using these tactics so that you can kind of understand how to rebuild your own teams on a budget. The second thing that I need to make you guys aware of is seeing how good your team is against the rest of the division. Now you can do this via the new squad planner. Now the squad planner in FM23, they kind of put a couple of the other things in together and you can kind of use it for different things. The way you want to use it in this instance is going into the report and going on the comparisons tab. Now let me know down in the comments how many of you guys actually go on this screen, because it has so much vital information that I think people really do need to be aware of. You can see all of the general information here. It also has all positions and you can filter via goalkeepers, defense, midfield, attack, physicals, mentals and technicals, and you can show any of the sort of segments of the pitch that you kind of want to take a look at. Basically what this does is it shows you how good you stack up against your division. So as you can see looking at here for 𝘼𝙗𝙪 Athletic, the green line and the green columns show that we are the highest average in the National League. So we are the highest in average age of 27.9 years of age, and we also have the highest number of international caps, which is 2. I'm not sure which ones of my players have been capped internationally, but you can kind of see where we rank here. You can also see the other stuff, average height, average weight. You can kind of see we're below average in terms of height, above average in terms of weight, and some of the other stuff here. We also have the lowest number of youth international caps, and we also have the lowest average player transfer value, which definitely goes to show that we need to do some work with this particular squad. But if you go through and you can see filtering on the goalkeepers tab, for instance, you can see if we look at our goalkeepers, Our goalkeepers are pretty decent, to be fair. Above average in most of the categories, are below average in the handling and in the throwing, but that's not the end of the world. If you look at our defense, we were relatively leaky, so this would be an area that I think we are doing pretty poorly in, but it doesn't look like we are. So sometimes the data isn't the worst thing you can take a look at. You can kind of see here we're above average in pretty much every category apart from acceleration, which I'm not too worried about. Let's have a look at the attack. Obviously, this was an area looking at the star ratings I thought we were quite poor at, but obviously it looks like here relatively okay. Off the ball, we're kind of struggling with. It's kind of a key mental attribute to have in your forwards. Also pace, pretty poor. Acceleration, the lowest in the division. So we are slow, guys. That is what I can determine from looking at this data. And then obviously you can go through that, all of these position by position, and see, for instance, where your midfield ranks and see all of this stuff. This will obviously change season on season. So make sure that you are taking consideration about this and obviously trying to find the best balance for your team and going into the transfer market, which we're going to talk about right now. So we are heading into the transfer market now, and I am on the scouting screen and we are ready to start a search for players. Now there's a couple of things you can do here. What I tend to do is search manually, so I would go on a new search, and we are at the 30th of April, so we will be looking for players whose contracts are expiring within 3 months. So what I would do here is I would set this filter to 3 months, and now you can see all of these players here are filtered and such. So you can see like 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 in here, his contract is going to be out of contract in that 3 month period. So once it gets to the end of the season, you can see we will be able to approach to sign this guy very, very soon. Make a list of these guys, have a look at the 6 months sort of marker. So when January the 1st hits, go in and take a look at the players whose contracts are expiring 6 months down the line, and you can kind of spot these bargains. Keep an eye on it. Once you've added them to a shortlist, your assistants and stuff will keep giving you information about that, and it will also send you an email when you are able to approach all of these people. I will say there is a little bit of a discrepancy in terms of players within your nation. That does change based on the game. So for instance, in England, you cannot approach people, I believe it's until 1 month until their contract expires, regardless of whatever division you're in. So just make a note of this. It is very useful to kind of see when some of these players are going to be coming available. I will also say, if we do go into the scouting and into the scouting center and the into the recruitment focus, this is where I want to go, sorry, my bad. You can create a recruitment focus here and make a look at this sort of thing in terms of some of these players, any position from the tactic, shall we say. Let's have a look at a transfer. Can we add a further detail here? Contract status is expiring within 1 year. This is what I would always set up on a save. So their contract is expiring within a year. Let's say maximum potential ability up there. We don't want all of the oldest players in the game, but we'll probably take players anywhere from 15 to 30 to play in any of the positions within my tactic, and we will call this end of contract, and then we go in and let's make that a top priority and let's confirm that. So then our recruitment focus will be looking for these players whose contracts are ending within the next year, and it will give you a nice little list of some of the best ones and what your staff think about them. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a scouting hack that's been in the game for a few years now, and it still is here. So you can kind of see a few more players available to you to sign. Now, I showed you when you are in the player search screen here. Again, we are still searching for the players whose contracts are expiring within 3 months. Now, this is kind of based on how big your scouting range is and part of your scouting package. So as you can see here, we have a scouting range in the National League, and you can kind of see how much that is costing us. Obviously, we are not paying a huge amount for it. Obviously, we are going into Sky Bet League 2. So on this filter, when we are looking for contracts that are expiring, you can see there's 345 players found within our scouting range. What happens if I do this though? If we click on here, you can see that we can't go up to Europe and we cannot go up to the world level because we just don't have the money for it. However, we could scout the whole of the UK and Ireland if we wanted to take this extra cost of 10k a month. 10k a month is almost our entire scouting budget, but if we flick over to here for the time being, we accept that message there, and then we go back here, you can now see there is 2,162 players that are now available within this search for you to take a look at. There are some players, there are going to be some players in here that you wouldn't have seen previously, and now you're going to be able to, because of being able to increase that scouting range. What I do with this instance is I will find these players, the additional ones that have come in terms of like transfer value or something like that. You can kind of see, obviously, it's pulling in players from Derby County and stuff like that they wouldn't have been doing before. You can find these players, you can have a little look at them, and then just change your package back. That's all I do. I do it every year. I do it on every save. So we're going to go back to the surrounding divisions. We're going to save ourselves a little bit of cash, and there you go. Half of those players disappear, and then you are able to find these extra gems, guys. Make sure you're doing that. So the next tip I have for you guys is to get into July. So once you get into July, the 1st of July will hit, and all the players that are listed for release will be released by bigger clubs. So this is a very important day when you are lower down in the divisions, because you can do the following tip. So if you go into the Premier League, for instance, you can take a look at Arsenal, and if you go into the transfers tab, you can have a look at their transfer history. Now this is good for just bringing up the general transfer history, but if you go on this drop down here where it says all transfers, you can go on to released players. This will give you a list of every single player that has been released by Arsenal, for instance. So you can go on here and have a look at Harry Clark, and you can have a look and you can approach to sign him, and you go, yes, okay, and then we can go to sign him. You can have a look at all these players as well. I do this for every single club in the top 2 divisions of every country that I'm in if I'm very far down, and I try and find some of these bargains. If you have a look and you can scroll through using these arrows here, you can basically cycle through and stay on this page. So here are all the players released from Aston Villa, Blackburn Rovers, who got promoted into the Premier League, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Everton. You can kind of see all of these Premier League clubs here that have players. All of these will become available for you to at least approach to sign, and then based on your wage budget, you can kind of see what players you can bring into your club. And finally, I just want to speak to you about a financial thing. If you are slightly overspending in your wage budget, please do not worry about it. It is fine as long as you are winning football matches. That is the main issue. Otherwise, it can work against you in terms of that club vision and stuff like that, because most clubs have, if we go into the club vision, work within the wage budget as an actionable objective. So that will be the case for most clubs. But if you are slightly overspending your wage budget, and this figure right here is red, it really doesn't matter as long as you are winning football matches. And that is all I can say for this video. If there is anything else you would like to know about how I rebuild teams, please do let me know down in the comment section. If you have enjoyed it, please do drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new around here, and if you want to learn a little bit more about Football Manager, check out this playlist popping up here, which is all my explainer videos for Football Manager, so that you can get a little bit better at the game.